And this is a video that I just haven't got around to, but I've meant to make many times. And again, just haven't got around to it. Since, a few weeks ago I made a video about Ricky having been sent to prison for his anti-Semitism on BitChute. You see, I don't think he should have gone to jail. I think he's misguided. He is. It's like I met him a few times. I don't mind him. He's got he handles himself quite well. He's a nice enough lad. But say get him on that worldview thing, all of a sudden everything's controlled by shadowy figures operating behind the scenes in secret, and it's just it's negative, if you like. It's very, it's like, as they said, black pill. It's like give up, and it's like, well, now what if you're right and lizards control the world? Now what? You just do nothing. What's the plan? Oh, well, we expose them. It's like, how? We don't know who any of these people are. But we do. Oh, do we? Come on. It's a matter of, to operate in that space is to put yourself in a hopeless and helpless situation, because what are we going to do? Well, the thing is, known him a long time, so we can put the clock back 10 years. That long? Yes, 10 years. Let's go back 10 years on Ricky. He brought things to my attention like 10 years ago that were absurd, and introduced me to some internet figures that I was like, oh my God, these people are actually like hypnotists. It's like, this is dangerous. It's like he fell under the influence or spell of a guy running a cult on the internet called Donald Marshall, and he wasn't the only person who'd fallen into it. Tila Tequila fell into it as well. Now, there's a thing about Tila Tequila, right? She's fucking nuts, but she's like a force of nature. It's like anyone pretty much who can give her a reason as to why she's as crazy as she is, if she likes the idea of it, she will believe it. It's like she'll be at the forefront of every cult crackpot thing, every new thing. If Tila Tequila's involved in it, you know that it's just fucking crazy. It's like she's like the canary in the coal mine. Well, yeah, she actually fell under the influence of Donald Marshall's cult, and that was that he's someone who peddles something called the cloning center, right? And there's a trick to it. Now, to best tell it, here's one for you. Who do you dream about? Right? It's like, there's a chance that if you were to sit, it's no longer possible, because I've taken so many videos down. But if you were to sit and like start watching my videos and start listening to them, there's a chance that I might just appear as a character in your head. You might think, oh, I know who he is. I know what he talks about. And because I'm quite natural and open about the way that I speak, I come across familiar. So it's like, if you were to sit and just watch videos back to back of me, there's always a chance, because of how our minds work, that you might dream about me. I had a dream and you were in it, right? And that just comes with familiarity. And if someone said something to you that maybe jarred something loose or got you thinking, it then creates an association, as it could be, say, I'm the guy in the video who made someone think, and therefore my sort of words of this new thought finds itself a home in the subconscious. And then there's a chance you might dream about me. I might appear in one of your dreams. Just come up. People say, I dreamt about you. And it really is because of the familiarity. So knowing that happens is a thing. So I get that as feedback when people come back to me and say, I had a dream about you. It's like, yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, how we're able to, like, take advantage of each other in some ways without us being there. Isn't it funny how you can carry people along with you? What does that teach you? So when people come back and say to me, yeah, I dreamt about you, it's like, yeah, it's an amazing thing, isn't it? It's a phenomenon I know about, being someone who's put so many videos out and had so many people watch me on the internet. It's a byproduct. It's like you've no control of it, but because of human nature, you may appear in someone's dreams because you've put yourself into the world. Now, Donald Marshall did a lot about that. He used to do like YouTube things, interviews, and then he used to have his own sort of own circle shit going on as to where he'd sit and he'd draw on for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And he'd create associations to everything. His spiel was like name dropping. If you let him talk, he could probably talk for an hour, and if you actually... There was a thing I did once, listening to an interview that he gave a guy called Vinny Eastwood, who was a guy, he was someone who tried to be this the other side of the internet sort of guy, who in essence failed. He was a guy from New Zealand, Vinny Eastwood. Well, I listened to an interview that Donald Marshall gave to Vinny Eastwood, and I just wrote down every time Donald Marshall dropped a name or a brand that was familiar in telling his story of the cloning center. And you get through it, and I got a pad, like an A4 pad, and I filled in just one line per label. And he'd used, I think it was in the end, 44 deliberate, distinct labels to other things that were strong, fanciful association that practically anyone who might be listening to it would have heard of. So when I talk about a fanciful association, I talk about things like Vladimir Putin, the Queen of England, Prince Charles, that's 3. And he used 44. Right. He goes from this name to this name to this name. So it give me this thing where I ended up with a list of 44 words. So I actually made a video of me just reading out the 44 words, and then I posted it on YouTube, understanding that I'd actually at the time put the word about us to say you're a hypnotist who's playing games with neuro-linguistic programming, and you're taking advantage of the fact that if people are superstitious and curious and misplaced in the world, they might find your stuff, like the idea of what you're saying, and then in essence just steal your story and say, yes, I'm a clone too, and I wake up at night in the cloning center and I'm being tortured by aliens. I'm not me. The real me is locked away underground in some place. And it's like him giving it all this as to where he put it out there that I live in this cloning center, and it was like a science fiction story. The science fiction story that he's saying the real world was like a piece of every science fiction movie you'd ever seen. That was again made up of fanciful associations from different movies. And I'm thinking, this guy's own paranoid delusions are extremely detailed. And they're all from a certain period of time, and the guy's roughly about the same age as me. So it's like, oh, so you know about all the TV and movies that I've seen. And this world that you've created, which you say is the real world, because you've seen it, you have got the ability to wake up in your dreams, and you know the enemy is. It's like, oh, how lucky for you. Now, if you capture people's imagination with this notion of it's like the Matrix and we're actually all in this cloning center, and you get people to dream of it, and then they dream of you, and it's like, I met you, and he's like, oh, well, of course you did. And then it's a matter of, that's a level of brainwashing. Now that's like black magic. To put that out, that's like, say a 500,000 people hear that story, and most, oh come on, but you get like 1% of them who are like, wow, yes, I know, I thought there was something familiar about you. I dreamt about you. Yes, I'm in the cloning centre too. Right? It's like the level of brainwash, the level of power he had over these people who dreamt about him was heavy duty. And then they were entered into his cult, and then basically you had to see the world from the way he saw it, or you were out. And his way of seeing the world was that the world's actually controlled by an alien race called the Vril. Vril. And they're a Vril, and anyone who disagrees with him is one of their agents. And in weeding out people who start to question the story, because the story changes all the time, because this guy's a fantasist, attention-seeking, money-grubbing, scamming cult leader, he can pretty much declare anyone an agent and have them cast out of the cult. And as long as he's broadcasting, or as long as he was broadcasting, would have an unlimited supply of crazy new recruits. Because the thing he used to do when he used to give his spiel was he'd get someone, basically overstimulate your brain, like gish gallop you, but gish gallop you with associations. And basically have a story that's like a patchwork quilt of images in the way that he'd talk about, who these people who are themselves aliens or else are clones and not real people. And it's like, you got people to fall in with this. And to say Rick, right, was in this guy's circle of ass kissers. He'd had the dream. He'd imagined that he is actually a clone of himself, and the real version of him is in a tank somewhere, and in his sleep sometimes he wakes up into the real world and he's with his friend in the cloning centre, and all the other celebrities are there too, and he has dreams full of celebrities. All through, basically it's hypnotics and head suggestion, it's neuro-linguistic programming, it's sensory overload by dropping so many people's names into this conspiracy. It's just sensory overload. You know, you're putting like a rock band together of all the famous people in the world and saying that they're all aliens in this secret club, and they sexually abuse us. They actually sexually abuse us in the cloning centre, and there's nothing we can do about it. So they rape us in our dreams, and so then he gets into all these psychologically damaged, mostly women, and he hasn't really been heard from, or not heard from me, because he's blocked me on a few different platforms. But, you know, since Rick went to jail, his Facebook group started showing activity again. Donald Marshall. Someone likely took money off Rick. I drank his house dry once. I never took any money off him. Never asked him to join some kind of revolution or cult. I'm putting to him as to say, hang on a minute. While we're talking shit like that, he tried to bring me in on it. That, have you heard of this? This is amazing. And Donald Marshall's a guy who used to say things like, they can't risk killing me because if they kill me, the earth will be destroyed. What? yes, I'm absolutely crucial to the continuing survival of the species. I'm your saviour. It's like, so if the powers that be decide to kill me, the world will just end. And I'm like, fucking hell, that is a good trick, isn't it? That made me sort of laugh so hard as to say, I'm fucking stealing that one. That's wondrous, isn't it? That's like end level narcissism as to say, I am the motherfucking centre of the universe. It's like, wow. It's like you're at a higher level of narcissism than at the time I realised that anyone could have the ego to come out with shit like that. Because it is so obviously true. When I die, the whole thing disappears. And it's like, well, it's kind of the same for everyone, isn't it? It's like, well, yeah. And him saying it like that, there's kind of a truth to it, because it's not just true for him, it's true for everyone. You can project that. What a nice little game that is to play as to, I'm going to fuck with someone, what are you going to say? So, well, you know, I'm absolutely crucial for the survival of humanity. Without me, you've no chance. The Vril will take over the earth completely. They'll turn everyone into the agents, spies, and oh, come on. But it was my thought that he was a cult leader and a dangerous person who was preying upon, to my mind, vulnerable people. And you'd have to be a piece of work in the first place to fall under his kind of spell. And let's have it right, Ricky, a piece of work. As to our first conversation I ever had with him was, he threw down at me very nasty and he says, I know more about things than you do. I'm like, who talks like this? And then he got his phone, and he had a modern thing at the time. He's one of these people that likes phones. He's like always been super up to date with phones. So he's got one of the earlier big screen sort of camera phones from years ago, because this is like 2011, 2012. And he's showing me pictures of chemtrails. And I put it to him, I'm like, if you believe that's true, you know, it's like the sky can fuck with you. That is like calling the weather gods on you, mate. That's superstition. It's like if you think that we're under constant chemical attack every time you look in the sky and see those chemtrails, as they call them. If that is your reality, if you've signed up for that, it's like anything can bug you, mate. Anyone can get to you. It's like, can't you see that is in itself a kind of mind control gaslighting scheme, but it's just not one of the government's, but it's somebody else's muddying the water. I'm like, can't you see that that's a bit of an obvious one as to where if they can fuck your day with the sky, how else can they fuck your day? How else can they make you feel like you're under attack and being and powerless and keep you afraid? It's like, how many other ways can people keep you afraid, mate? If the sky can be used as a weapon to scare you. And he's like, fuck you. I'm like, there's no need to, no way to talk to someone who's trying to do you a favour, mate. It's like, you believe in all that shit. So it's like, Rick, right? You'll never not be able to tell him there's no such thing as that Vril thing. Because the Vril thing is only the same as saying anything, really. It's only the same as saying academic leftists. It's only the same as saying, if you're not naming names, the Vril are as good as the communists. The Vril are certainly as plain as day an anti-Semitic type supernatural approach. I think, you know, when anything's like a supernatural approach to propaganda, it always gets labelled under the anti-Semitism because of the definitions of that medieval anti-Semitism. It is anti-Semitism. They're right, it is, but it's a different kind. It's like to use witchcraft to go up against Jews, to use superstition to go up against Jews. Now, the Vril thing, if you look at it, it's exactly the same conspiracy theory as as they call it, the Illuminati conspiracy theory, and then all like Jew conspiracy theories are identical to that. So it's like the Vril thing is a way of smuggling into someone that false consciousness. So it's a word used by communists, but I mean that to install a false consciousness, to start seeing patterns of movement in the background. It's like, in view of the fact that he was so well in with this alien cult, right? Because that's what it is. It's an alien cult. That he believes, or believed at one time, had their fingers in every pudding in the world. You know, basically you could blame them for every fucking ill in the world. It's like, were you set up to be as anti-Semite? Or are you just superstitious and found that the language of, you know, the old Jewry thing, which again is, I put it all down under, it's a tribal superstition. It's like you can learn a trick or two from those people. It's like you don't understand what the actual Jew message is, and it's like, to be as cynical as you like and even use a trope, it's like there's something everyone can learn from the Jews. And it's a matter of, well, what's that, John? It's they know that everybody's money spends, and you cut off your nose to spite your face to discriminate against anyone in view of the fact all the money spends. That's the massive edge they've always had, I reckon. They don't discriminate. They'll take your money regardless. Why refuse to do business with somebody because of the way they look when their money spends? It's like, as an attitude, that's really progressive. It's a place to start. Whereas I don't see there's that many people who fall into hate, who've got a toolbox like that, of understanding like that. It's just, no, we don't discriminate. We're in business to make money. And you might think that some people have suffered. It's like, but those people gambled, didn't they? They gambled and they lost, and it's not our fault they gambled and they lost. They gambled and they lost. We won. It's a mistake, a world full of pitfalls and dumbasses and scams. And just understanding that it's in human nature to fall under the spell of all kinds of bullshit. You understand people's egos, you understand the sort of people who are best to be targeted for scams. And the rules are different. It's like, if you want people to join up for your religion or your cult, you look at the bottom for the broken, and then if you want to scam money, you look for the same kind of broken with money. But they have a different whole set of issues. They've never had the people at the bottom, the desperate at the bottom, they've never had the benefit of an ego. So the way that you can sign them up is with the promise of free stuff and the rich. I mean, it's like, offer them something they can brag about, and they'll sign up for you. Offer them something they can pay to virtue signal, and they'll sign up. The old Church of Scientology. Like, as many games can be played, but I'll tell you, Marshall, for being someone who should have been shut down and institutionalised because of his own paranoid delusions. People with paranoid delusions, the thing is, they mouth off and their paranoid delusions can become shared delusions. Now, his shared delusion has people living their lives believing themselves trapped in a clone body, and it be a matter of, well, you're disposable. You're helpless. You're a victim. You need to be rescued physically, and no one knows where your body is. It's a bit of a fucking conundrum. I'm glad I'm not trapped in some underground cloning centre. But there's a thing, and no one can ever nobody's ever been able to explain why it says it. I'm of, like, as they say, because when we're in the world of superstitious things, I'm a superstitious person because I'm of the old blue blood, miles away from where my ancestors might have hailed, and miles away from the sort of position and fortune of my ancestors. So it's like when we get talked superstitious, it's like, oh, well, the most superstitious thing in the world is the old fad for the enemy being of the old blood. So I'm like the blood of the enemy, right? But it's like, yeah, but I'm not in anyone's cult or anything, but it's like I am the kind of superstitious blood of the enemy. And it's like, if you type in all the conspiracy theories to do with type O negative, look for that kind of stuff on YouTube, which is in the same sort of circles as the cloning centres, that level of elite sort of conspiracy theory bloodline. You go and look up at the old conspiracy theories about the type O negatives ruling the world, and there's something that always appears in every single list, and no one can ever say why. And in every single one of these articles it says, cannot be cloned. And he's on about cloning centres at the centre of the earth. But it's saying that those of his, the sort of group who would be his imagined enemy in the contextual real world, to take the aliens out and move it back to superstition. His old enemy cannot be cloned, so they'd be the Vril, wouldn't they? They'd be the guys who can do the cloning. They can clone everybody else, but they themselves cannot be cloned. So yeah, it's like he, because he disappeared from as being an influence, I don't know what he gets on, how he gets on with small groups of people, or what friends that guy's managed to make from his time of trying to sell fantasies. But I think he gave everyone the perfect foundation course in hatred and imaginary doom and complete helplessness and hopelessness and seeing conspiracies everywhere, and then calling out those who may question your fantasies as being agents of the enemy. I think all along in that talk of the Vril, the aliens, it's all just code for Jew. We're playing medieval anti-Semitism because you people are savages now. We can trick you with pagan magic, with big words and wows, and get into your subconscious and infect your dreams, and then the next thing you know, you're sharing my delusion of us all living in a great big fucking cloning centre. It's like I am seriously down on Rick going to jail for anti-Semitism, and it'd be a matter of, oh, right wing. It's like, no, new age. It's like he's fallen under the influence of a witch in the modern sense, able to trap and terrorize people in their imaginations, who at one stage may have believed and bought into. It's a big weight off when someone comes along and says, look, I know about the trauma, I know about the pain, I know about the cloning centre, I've been sent to free you all and lead a revolution. And you play saviour. First you create the prison, and then you announce that you're the only guy who's got the key to save everyone from it. It's like, what a construct that is. What a deliberate, manipulative, crazy, fucked up kind of junky mind comes up with that. When I spotted that in full motion, it was a matter of, at the time, I was somebody who'd been putting in a lot of time and study into this kind of creepy shit. Before I got my own apple cart sort of knocked over by those kind of people. But I was looking at certain cults and certain stories and certain techniques and certain things I'd noticed myself. A lot of years been researching how these, fucked things come together. And when you see it in the flesh like that, have arrived as to say this is as dangerous as the internet and as subversive as the internet gets, you've created a cult behind a self-proclaimed astral messiah. Oh, this is dangerous. This is the sort of shit that if it gets emulated and duplicates and changes its code words, is an exceptionally dangerous situation. And I'm talking about this going on in 2008 and 2009 and 2010. And I'm like, the pioneers of this great Pied Piper game we see these days, some of the real pioneers, certainly on the internet, they started off talking to you about two people about ghosts and goblins and UFOs and demons and spirit and forces and chakras and lightning and thunder and names for things. And I've seen its migration. And I'm like, once you get it as to where these at the top who would call themselves these wizards and high priests of superstition, trickery, emotional manipulation, when you get it as to where people like that, a guy with my understanding, if he just solely sought power and looked at what the wetware were programmed to listen to, basically the four pillars of socialism, your old climate change, LGBT, feminism, anti-racism. For that man to come and beat that drum, that is like the end of days, mate. That's like the signs of that things have gone seriously fucking left. I saw that in Obama. And then I saw a generation of Obama clones appear who just give Obama speeches. And I'm like, the earth got done in, right? Permanently by this kind of new narcissistic, fantasist, psychopathic, living your own version of the world and no one can criticize it. This conditioning for a bigger worldview being pumped down on all of us. This is half-assed, won't work. The biggest flaw in those who might believe that they could take spiritual power like that is that it just doesn't work. You get too much resistance to it, and the resistance to it be powerful and effective. It doesn't actually work, but it works on some people, and if it can work on enough people, you don't need that many. So it's bad. It's like when you get it as to where those who know a trick or two, when they deliberately turn court away from what they know into just repeating what people have been. Let's have it right now. It's been going on so long, it's now to tell people what they are conditioned to hear. It's like, tell us a joke we know. Talk about something that we know about. Reaffirm our cultural programming, please. And we will celebrate you for it. And if you go against what we've been programmed, we're going to make you fucking pay. See, that's the way it's gone. That's the way it is now. And it's like, Obama did us in by tapping into that power. Knowing what he's doing. Knowing, if I play it a certain way, I can twist it as to a way where I can't lose. I can accuse everybody who opposes me of just being racist. Not realising that in playing those circular games open Pandora's box to everybody reaching for that tactic that can no longer be defeated because years previous legislation was written to protect it. And Obama showed everyone how to play. It's like if there's something evil and there's something behind the scenes doing tremendous damage, it's Satan. And he manifests in the individual, in the person who really enjoys enforcing ridiculous rules on others because they can. They've been given arbitrary power to control others and they enjoy it. That'd be what the world is for them. That'd be what the job is for them. It's like you wonder why productivity ain't what it could be. It's like because the power dynamics of what you look for in your leaders has left it open so anyone can masquerade as one. And what's their preoccupation in life? Well, it's cutting off the likes of me at the knee, isn't it? Who's just slightly better than they are. Had a lifetime of it. I'll tell you what. No one has ever managed to recruit me into a cult. It's never happened. And I've never started one. Could start one any time. Start one any time I liked. It's not that hard. But when you look at the ones that I tell you, some of the obvious cults on the internet, that if they existed and people, met up, they'd get broken up and there'd be fucking riot police there making sure it can't happen. I mean, you'd think, wouldn't you? You think of these great conventions of people who meet up in real life off the internet. It's like, what a predator's paradise they are. Like something that no one could have dreamed once upon a time. You would turn up like that. It's like, that's where we're at.